Hello to our friends and viewers around the world. My name is Olayeka Dan Salami, and welcome to another episode of Know Your Rights on NABNTV, a program that provides you with general information about some of your rights under the federal and state constitution in the United States of America. A few weeks ago, the issues of travel ban and new public charge rule dominated the airwaves. Many people who like to immigrate to the United States and those who are trying to apply for green cards in the US are now worried on how the new public charge rule and the travel ban will affect them. Today we have in our studio Ebony Anuforo, an immigration expert who will shine some light and address those concerns for you. Welcome to our show, Ebony.
Thank you for having me.
Ebony, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well, my name is Ebony Anuforo. I am the principal and managing attorney at Anuforo Law Firm. We represent individuals and families nationwide in matters related to immigration and nationality law. We take cases as simple as whether someone wants to renew their green card or as complex as someone who's going through deportation or who's filing a defensive asylum case. We have our offices are located both in New York and in New Jersey.
Thank you very much. So now let's talk about this travel ban that was just announced a few weeks ago by the U.S. government. Some countries were now added to the already existing list.
Yes.
What do we mean when we talk about travel ban? What are we talking about?
Right. So a week ago or so, the Trump administration expanded their already existing travel ban and included 6 additional countries, including Nigeria. Other countries were Eritrea, Myanmar, Kyrgyzstan, Sudan, and Tanzania. And what this travel ban is going to do, it's basically going to limit, or actually I should say restrict, nationals from those countries from receiving their green cards. So if you are from Nigeria, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, and in Myanmar, you cannot get your green card to immigrate to the United States. And if you're from Sudan and from Tanzania, you are not able to get your green card through the diversity visa lottery program. So that's where we are right now.
So the travel ban is actually against those who want to immigrate, those who are applying for green card.
Exactly. So the critics of the Trump administration, they're actually calling this an immigration ban and not a travel ban, really, because all measures that are placed in this particular ban is focusing on those who plan to immigrate permanently to the United States. So you have a lot of families that are going to be affected by this. Husbands and wives who want to reunite with their spouse, and mothers and fathers, children who they're trying to bring over to the United States. They're going to have big difficulty with this ban.
And we're talking about legal immigration now.
We are talking about legal immigration, correct.
So if someone wants to now apply for his or her, someone in Nigeria now, or in any of those countries that are listed, so that person will not be able to do that. Is that what we are talking about here?
That is correct. So if you have a current application, a green card application that's current, and you have not received your interview, you have not been approved, you will not be able to get your green card essentially as of the effective date, which is February 22nd.
So, but what if I have been interviewed and then my application has been approved? Would this still affect me?
No, so if you've been approved prior to the effective date of February 22nd, you're fine. You'll get your green card and you'll be able to reunite with your family and come to the United States. This affects those who have either new applications or current applications where they haven't been approved yet.
So what if I have filed my application, but my interview date has not arrived? They have not scheduled me for an interview, and the travel ban now takes effect. So where does that put me?
Pretty much in limbo until this ban is done. Unfortunately, until this ban is lifted, there's not much that you can do because we don't have any end date, but we do hope, that this ban will be lifted soon. But in the meantime, unfortunately, those that do not have an approval are not going to be able to get their green card under this restriction. So for Sudanese and Tanzanian nationals, the travel ban is only restricted to the diversity visa lottery. So if you are trying to petition for your spouse or any other family preference category member, like your child or your parent, you can still go ahead and move with that process. For Sudan and Tanzania, this restriction is only for those who are applying through the diversity visa lottery.
So what about for someone from Nigeria?
Nigeria is banned altogether.
Welcome back, our viewers. Ebony, I know we'll be talking about the travel ban, but there is another issue that is now dominating the airwave, especially with the public charge. People are very, very, very concerned with this public charge. What does public charge mean?
So, a public charge, as defined by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, which is also known as USCIS, is someone who is likely to become primarily dependent on the government for subsistence. So, someone who's likely to be dependent on cash assistance or some sort of institutionalized long-term care. Public charge is not a new concept. It's been part of immigration law for over a century. Since the late 1990s, the immigration officers have been using public charge as a way to determine who's inadmissible to enter this country under immigrant visas. However, I think the issue is that the Trump administration has expanded this definition of what a public charge is, particularly what the public benefits fall under public charge. The immigration officers are also going to be looking at additional factors that will be used to determine who is likely to become a public charge in the future.
Okay, so this is not something that is new.
No.
It has been in existence for a very long time.
Yes.
Except that there are additional things now that the immigration officer will now consider.
Absolutely, yes.
So when does the rule take effect?
So the public charge rule will take effect as of February 24th of this month, so in a few days. And it is going to affect anyone who is applying to adjust their status, I should say, as of that date. So it's following a postmark rule. So if you have an application to adjust your status or your green card, it's going to follow the postmark route. So if you apply on February 24th or after, you're going to be subjected to this new public charge rule. If you have an application that's postmarked prior to the effective date, then you're going to be subjected to the current rule, the former rule.
So now let's talk about who is actually subjected to these public charge rules. Who do we have here?
So people that are going to be subjected to this public charge rule are people that are looking to apply for their green card, people that are looking to adjust their status here in the United States. So, for example, if you have a wife that is currently in the U.S. who is filing her green card, you're petitioning for her as your spouse, she will be subject to the public charge rule.
So those who are actually subjected to this rule are not the sponsor.
No, not the sponsor.
But then the beneficiary.
Yes. So the petitioner, the applicant, is going to be subjected to the public charge rule.
So if I'm filing for my wife, I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm filing for my wife to become a permanent resident. It doesn't matter whether I am collecting whatever benefit from the government. It doesn't matter. Is that so?
So historically, when you're petitioning for someone to become a green card holder, you have to complete a form called an Affidavit of Support. This is basically a contract that you're saying that I'm going to be responsible for this person who's coming to the U.S. and basically I'm going to ensure that they can take care of themselves, that they're not going to be a public charge. So the government will still look at the petitioner in some way. However, under the new rule, they're going to be focusing more so on the applicant. In fact, what they're doing is that they've created a new form called the I-944 form. It's called the Declaration of Self-Sufficiency. So on this form, they're going to be focusing heavily on the particular petitioner's ability to financially support themselves while they're here. They're going to look at several different factors.
So, but for me, as the sponsor, listen, if I don't have the money, I can have somebody, to co-sponsor.
Yes, you can have a co-sponsor that will also be able to support you if you yourself financially cannot do so. That is still in place.
So the focus again is on the beneficiary or the applicant or the person who is filing the I-485, to become a permanent resident.
Yes.
Help me out here. It appears that from what you are saying, that if I'm in Nigeria, or if I'm in another country and I'm filing, my spouse is filing for me, I don't have to be worried.
Not necessarily. So, if you're petitioning for a spouse that's in Nigeria, they go through a different process. It's not the adjustment of status process. It's actually called consular processing. So, this is when you are filing your green card overseas back home, and you go through the Department of State and you file through the consulate or an embassy in your country. It's a different process. The applications are not adjudicated or processed through USCIS. It's done through the State Department. However, the Department of State does have their own public charge policy.
I see.
Yes, it's not final yet, but they will be implementing that very soon.
So, I guess I was asking you before our commercial break that um, if I am applying for someone who is outside the United States, so this public charge rule will not affect that. And it appears that you were telling me that the consular office outside the country, outside the United States, has its own public charge rule that they will be implementing, and it's coming very soon.
Very soon.
So we have not seen the end to this issue here. Is that what it is?
Right. I believe they're in the process of updating and finalizing their policy right now, but it's supposed to mirror almost exactly the public charge rule that is being used by the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services.
So it is highly, highly, highly advisable to people who are trying to file for their immediate relatives or their relative in their country to do it right away before the new public charge rule.
That is absolutely correct. Yes, if you can have your application postmarked, and that means, if you're submitting it through DHS, DHL, FedEx, UPS, you want to have it courier stamped before the 24th. If you're submitting it online, you want to have that electronic stamp before the 24th. Anything after the 24th is going to be subjected to this new rule.
But those who are applying, in outside the country, so it is also advisable to quickly do it ASAP.
I would advise it to do it ASAP as well.
Because you don't know when when their own public charge rule will come out. Okay, so now, what if I heard that this public charge rule can also affect those with green card, those who have their own green card. Is that correct?
So no and yes, and I say this because I know I've been getting a lot of questions about people who are current legal permanent residents who might want to apply for their naturalization.
Okay,
they want to get their citizenship.
Yes.
So they're worried, is this going to affect me if I apply for my citizenship? And the answer is no, it's not going to affect you if you want to apply for your citizenship. However, if you are a green card holder, you still need to be careful because you could subject yourself to public charge grounds. For example, if you're traveling abroad and you spend anything over 180 days outside of the country, you can face scrutiny when you're trying to re-enter and face public charge grounds, especially if you're someone who has received public benefits in the past, like supplemental security income or Medicaid and stuff like that. So you have to be very careful if you're a legal permanent resident to try to avoid trips that are greater than 180 days.
So if I have my green card and I have received some public benefits such as housing and SNAP.
Yeah, right.
So, and I'm traveling to anywhere in the world, I can't stay for more than 180 days.
Yes, I would highly avoid that.
But then if I stay less than 180 days, I'm okay. Is that what it is? So what about people with criminal conviction? Does it apply as well?
Right now, it doesn't. Really, you don't really have to worry about that. I think that's an issue in itself. If you are someone who has a criminal conviction, and I would recommend consulting with your attorney, someone who is very familiar with criminal law and how that can affect your immigration status here in this country.
Okay, but then generally, criminal conviction can render someone inadmissible.
It can, which is why I say I would recommend consulting your attorney before making any trips outside of the U.S.
Okay. So now, what about, does the public charge rule, does it affect, those who are applying for visiting visas?
No.
It doesn't?
No. This is just for people who are looking to get their green card.
So again, you say, if I'm applying to become a U.S. citizen, I don't have to worry about the public charge.
That is correct. So there are some non-citizen groups that are not, or I should say, exempt from the public charge rule, and that includes those who are asylum seekers or refugees. There are other non-citizen groups that are also exempt from this. Those that are victims of trafficking, individuals who are domestic violence victims. So if you're applying and petitioning through VAWA, self-petitioning through VAWA, you are not going to be subjected to the public charge rule. And there are a list of other groups that are also not going to be subjected to this public charge.
So let's say that, someone, who has been living in the United States, I apply, you apply for your spouse, and your spouse has been here, but the children of your spouse have been receiving public benefit. So would that affect the spouse that you're applying for?
What do you mean by the children? Are they United States citizens?
They are United States citizens.
So that should not affect you. The benefit, as a United States citizen, you have a right to receive public benefits if you indeed need them. So that's not going to affect you. This is only going to affect those individuals who are immigrants that are looking to apply for their green card. The interesting thing about it is that most immigrants they don't even qualify for these public benefits anyway. So I think it's very important that people look at the other factors that the immigration officers are going to be focusing on. And there are 6 factors. They're going to look at your age. They're going to look at your health. They're going to consider your financial stability, your assets, resources that you have. They're also going to look at your family size. Who are you bringing here? Who are your dependents? How many people are you coming with when you immigrate here? And they will also look at educational level and skills that you also plan to bring into the U.S. So I think that those 6 factors are very important because the immigration officers have the high discretion to determine who they think will likely become a public charge in the future. It's forward-looking.
So you're telling us now that, immigration officer will look at the age of someone who is trying to immigrate to the United States?
Yes, they will. They will consider.
And that person can be rendered inadmissible because of the age?
It's very possible. If they're looking at, when they're making these decisions to determine who would be a public charge, they're looking at the totality of the circumstances. So there's no one particular factor that will make the final determination. They look at the big picture.
But this is discretionary, though.
It's very discretionary.
So they can actually say, yes, you are 18 years old or you are under 18 years old. I think, you're going to be subject to public charge rule.
It's possible. This is why this is very new to a lot of practitioners, but it's important when we are working with our clients to put together their petitions going forward to provide as much positive evidence in their application. So, for example, if someone has a health condition, that's something that you can't really control, right? If you're sick, you have a health condition, what you could show that could outweigh that health condition is show proof of health insurance, or proof or the intent that you will get health insurance in the future. So there are other things that you can kind of include to kind of offset any negative factors that you might have with your case.
So how do I get health insurance? If I don't really have that much money.
That's the issue, right? That's what the United States government is trying to avoid. Those individuals who are going to come here and have to rely on benefits.
But what about the age? What about the age? What if I'm bringing in, my retired mother, who she was retired, she had only high school education back home. If I'm bringing her to the United States and I'm going to be responsible for her, so why can't I do that?
Well, so I think that as a sponsor, you would still have to submit your affidavit of support to show that you are capable financially to take care of your mother, but you will also have to submit other evidence, unfortunately, that might weigh, higher. So your mother might only have a high school diploma, but, maybe there's some assets that she has. Does she own property? Does she have money in the bank? Is she in good health? You want to include other evidence that's going to be a positive factor in your application.
I'm just very concerned about this educational stuff here, Let's even forget that, my mother is back home. My mother is in the United States. But she converses only in my language.
That could be an issue because they are going to consider, English proficiency as one of the factors, unfortunately. So this is a concern for a lot of people who are petitioning, after the effective date of the 24th, how do we avoid some of these negative factors? So it's still very new for many of us, but like I said, it's very important to try to offset by including other positive factors within your file.
I also heard about the 250 poverty guideline.
Right.
As another thing that is going to be part of this public charge. So prior to that, it was
125 above the federal poverty guidelines. Yeah. So now it's 250.
What does that mean? Can you please explain that?
So it's math. If you go to my website, I have information up there too to kind of break down how that math looks. But they're basically, you have to show that you would be above, depending on your family size, you would be above the designated.
What is the current poverty guideline now? Is it $17,000 or?
I have to look and see the numbers.
Let's say for argument's sake that the current poverty guideline now is $17,000, for a single family. So usually I have to earn 125%.
Now you would have to do
25% more than the 17,500. So now it's now 250.
Right. So
instead of the 125.
Correct. So the requirements have become a lot more
double
difficult, right, for people to meet. Yeah.
Including the education.
And a lot of people
including the age.
Yeah. So a lot of people are going to be affected by this. It's still very new. A lot of these cases will be adjudicated months down the line. So we'll really see how the new public charge rule is going to affect these applicants. Okay, so you should be aware that, number one, that the effective date of this public charge goes in effect on February 24th. So if you haven't gotten your application out, I recommend doing so as soon as possible. So if you have an application that you've put together, please have it postmarked prior to the 24th, and then you will not be subjected to this rule.
So I will not be subjected to the 250%. I will not be subjected to this age, this merit system and stuff like that.
Correct.
Okay, what other things should we be aware of?
So you should also be aware that under the new public charge rule that the Trump administration has increased the types of public benefits that they will be counting as negative factors.
Let's talk about that. What are those public benefits?
So originally it was mainly those who received cash assistance, but now they've included other types of benefits like SNAP, we mentioned before. So if you receive EBT, food stamps, that will be weighed as a negative factor. Institutionalized long-term care, Section 8 public housing is also going to be weighed as a negative factor.
How about Medicaid?
Medicaid will be weighed as a negative factor as well, and those that are receiving SSI as well. There are some benefits that they will not consider a negative factor. So
what are they?
So for example, if you are on WIC program, a lot of women use WIC program when they have kids. So if you're using the Women and Infants and Children's program, that will not be subjected to the new public charge rule. Medicare will not be subjected. If your child participates in the National School Lunch, that's not going to be subjected. And there are other benefits that are listed. And this is all listed on the USCIS website. So if anyone's interested, they actually break it down and explain what a public charge is, what the benefits that are going to be weighed negatively are, who is, they do a good job in putting that information out there on their website so that you're aware.
And what is that website?
I believe it's USCIS.gov. Yes. Okay. So they are going to be looking, when they're looking at your financial status and stability, they are going to take into account your credit history. So they will be looking to see if you have any personal debt. So that will be weighed as a negative factor, especially if you're someone with personal debt, bad credit, and no job.
Bad credit?
Well, not bad credit, but bad credit history with no job. Yes,
yes. That's what I'm saying.
So they will take all of this into consideration, and there's so much discretion that's being given to these immigration officers when they are trying to determine who is going to be admissible or not. So they're going to look at a big picture again, and they're going to consider everything. So it's very important when you're applying and you're working with your attorney to submit as much positive information that will help your case as possible, especially if you have, again, negative factors in your case.
But this is something that was never, part of the
requirement before,
of the equation
exactly,
before.
which is why a lot of people are worried about it, because you never had to really worry about these issues. If you had a sponsor who was financially sound to sponsor you,
Right.
essentially you would be fine. But
Right.
now the focus is taken away from the sponsor and more so on the individual. Again, which is why there's the new form, the I-944 form, that you have to complete. That's going to ask you a series of questions, and they're going to be using that form to determine who they think could be a public charge. So keep that in mind. It's forward-looking. They're making a determination on your current situation on whether or not you will be able to financially support yourself in the future.
I'm a little bit, again, just for our viewers, because we get so many calls on this issue, especially someone whose mother is here, is in the United States, or parents, let me use, old age parents is the United States, and the individual wants to file for his or her parent,
Right.
who is like 70 years old.
Right. I mean,
and has no job, is retired.
Right.
I have all the means. I have the money. My mom and my dad, they don't have to rely on anything. Does that mean I still can't file for my mother?
You can file.
But what is going to happen during the interview?
Well, we don't know. You're going to be asked questions during that interview, that's going to be focused heavily on the particular applicant now. So even if you as the sponsor has the means, they will still take that into consideration. However, moving forward, they are going to be taking things into consideration that's more focused on the applicant, unfortunately. This is why a lot of people are in uproar about this new regulation. And that's why it was in court for over a year now, almost a year now.
Right.
And it's still enjoyed in Illinois. So applicants in Illinois are not subject
to Illinois. I have to go to Chicago to go and file.
Right. So if you're in Chicago and you are petitioning, you're okay. You're not going to be subjected to this new rule. But however, everybody else will be as of the 24th, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Ebony, for shedding some light on some of these very important issues to our community, especially the travel ban. And we hope that you have found this program very informative. We will be on the air every other week. This will give you an opportunity to send us any questions you may have, and we plan to address those questions during the next upcoming show. But we would like to appeal to you to advertise your products and to be one of our sponsors so that we can continue to disseminate important information about the rights that you have under the United States Constitution and under federal state laws. We would like to equip you with the sufficient information and dispel any misinformation and myth that may be going on in our community. We also hope that we can allay some of the fears that some of you may have when it comes to the law in the United States. Please always stay tuned to Know Your Right on NABNTV. And finally, we just want to let you know that this program has not created any attorney-client relationship. If you have a legal matter or you have a pending case, it is best to review all the facts and circumstances of your particular situation with an attorney in order to determine the best course of action. You may contact any of our guests or any other attorney for further consultation if you wish. We want to emphasize that neither NABNTV nor its host is liable for any consultation you may have with any of our guests on this show. We are merely providing you with general information. Thank you for watching Know Your Rights on NABNTV. We will be back next week.